Welcome, viewers. You're watching Diplo Talks, where we connect you to the world of diplomacy. This month, Vietnam is celebrating the India Vietnam Strategic Partnership, and Vietnam Embassy in India is celebrating the Vietnam Month in India. Vietnam has also dealt with some kind of international tension during this event. To talk with us, we have with us the Ambassador of Vietnam to India, His Excellency Pham Sanh Chau. Welcome, Ambassador. Ambassador,
Morning.
Ambassador, to begin with, as I mentioned, Vietnam is celebrating the Vietnam Month in India. How do you think this is going to help to promote Vietnam culture in India?
We are very delighted to be able to organize 34 events in only 1 month of November, and we call it the month of Vietnam in India. During this month, we tried to promote the relationship, what we call the comprehensive strategic partnership between Vietnam and India in many ways, not only in cultural field. We want to try to help companies of the two countries to explore business opportunity for trade, for investment, for tourism. Now talking about cultural cooperation, we believe that this is one of the important opportunity for Vietnam to increase the awareness of Indian public of Vietnam. Vietnam nowadays is quite different from what it was 20, even 10 years ago. So in terms of culture, we want to project the image of President Ho Chi Minh because he's the founding father of our nation. And we are going to celebrate his 130th anniversary of his birth. So very much in that, we also want to launch a book about him, and that book recall the sentiments and reflections of Indian friends about President Ho Chi Minh. In addition to that, during this month, we also present to Indian public about the beauty of Vietnam as wedding destination, as a tourist destination. And we also want to stress the beauty of Vietnamese cuisine. Therefore, we also launch Vietnam Food Festival at Pullman Hotel and at Vietnam restaurant in Huber Cyber Hub in Guogaot. And we also on this occasion to highlight the Vietnamese painting together with ICMEC in Guogaot. So by and large, we have a lot of activities to enhance the cultural identity of Vietnam.
Ambassador, you also have some high-level delegation coming from Vietnam. Could you brief us about that?
We are expecting the visit to India by the Vice President of Vietnam in order to conclude a whole year of full activities between India and Vietnam. This year, Vietnam is very blessed to welcome the Vice President of India, who came on the occasion of Vesak, and he went and he made a very important and impressive keynote speech about all Buddhist values and its connections with the relationship between Vietnam and India. And during this month, we also have the visit of our first Deputy Minister of Home Security and first Deputy Minister of Defense in order to strengthen the cooperation between our two countries in the field of defense and security. And now, Madam Vice President, she will come and launch the first ever historic direct flight between Hanoi and New Delhi and between Ho Chi Minh City and New Delhi. Our relationship has been very old, 2000 years old, but it is not until now we will be able to have a direct flight connecting our two capitals.
Ambassador, there are many cultural similarities between Vietnam and India, and in Vietnam also connects greatly with the region of Bihar in India. So, what do you think about that?
Bihar is the most favorite destination in India for Vietnamese visitor. The reason is that Bihar hosts the birthplace, the place where Lord Buddha got enlightenment. I just share with you one example. In 1 month of February or January, we have 12 charter flights going to Bihar, Bodh Gaya, Varanasi. And if you look at the program of the month of Vietnam in India, you will see two events related to Varanasi and Bodh Gaya relics, simply because we treasure this place very much. When you talk about India in Vietnam, the first things that come to the mind of every people is India is the synonym of Lord Buddha. Therefore, everyone want to come here and experience in their once lifetime adventure the place where Lord Buddha got enlightenment. So we from there, the remaining tour operator developed a circuit we call the four Buddhist relic circuit. I have been there twice. My family have been there, and they will come back again. So this is the strong point to attract Vietnamese visitors. But I believe that that is not the only strong point. Recently, we took a big delegation of Vietnamese business people to come to Himachal Pradesh, especially Jerusalem, in order to see not only the monasteries, but importantly to attend the global investor meet organized by the state and the center government. And we see there are many opportunities on tourism, on hotel development, and on yoga and wellness as well. So not only Bihar, Himachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Rajasthan, Punjab, and especially Leh and Ladakh will definitely be a nice destination for Vietnamese travelers. I would like to take this opportunity to call on all the wedding planners to come to Vietnam, and those who would like to have, it's outside India wedding, do come to Vietnam. There are various reasons for that call. Firstly, you will have to change completely the mindset, the view of India by foreign countries. I give you an example. The recent wedding organized by a family in Mumbai, in Phu Quoc Island in Vietnam. During the wedding took place for 5 days with 700 guests, with 2 charter flights, changed completely or radically the view by the Vietnamese people of India. So we become very grateful, but very respectful of India and its people, because we did not expect India to have that luxury and high class wedding activities. Number 2, we appreciate the family values, because through an Indian wedding, we see the way you treat their people, the linkages between different members in the family, and that touched the heart of the Vietnamese people. And number 3, we contribute to the famous identity of Indian people, namely, when you talk about wedding, Indian wedding should come first. Now, if you Google in Vietnamese newspaper, wedding Indian, and you will see hundreds of articles writing about it. And I would like to congratulate you for that heritage, culture heritage.
Vietnam is also growing in terms of economy. So, could you brief us about the development in Vietnam?
Vietnam is blessed to be able to record a very sustainable economic growth rate with more than 7% per year. At the moment, all the macroeconomic index are very positive for Vietnam. We have been able to ensure a very good trade values of nearly 500 billion US dollar per year, and it keep increasing on year. And in terms of foreign debt, we are able to keep it under the target of 61% as defined by the National Assembly of Vietnam. We also have a very stable financial macro economy, and our inflation rate is around 3.4%, which is less than 4% identified by the National Assembly. Foreign investment keep filling in Vietnam. This on the average every year around 35 billion US dollar, and we have a very high international visitors number per year, which is around 15 million international visitors. So by and large, the economy of Vietnam is doing very well, and we hope that we continue to be a robust, dynamic, and rising economy in Asia.
Excellency, this is the third year of the comprehensive strategic relation between India and Vietnam. So, what are the achievements of these 3 years?
Over the past 3 years, since the relationship were upgraded to the comprehensive strategic partnership by Prime Minister Narendra Modi during his visit to Vietnam in September 2016, and our Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc, there have been so many successes in our bilateral relations. I can just mention three major ones. The first one is that in terms of high-ranking visit exchange, leaders of the two countries almost cover the visits to each other. We have been able to welcome the Prime Minister of India, the President of India, the Vice President of India, and we are looking forward to welcome the Speaker of the lower house of India. On the Vietnamese side, our President have visited India, our Prime Minister have visited India last year, our President of the National Assembly of Vietnam had visited 2 years back, and now our Vice President of Vietnam is coming. In addition to that, we have a lot of visits of foreign ministers, deputy prime ministers, and various ministers of different fields. So this is the first achievement. The second achievement is that we have seen progress in our defense and security cooperation, with an increase of not only tendencies of the visit, but also we also see more and more projects which are coming into being. For your information, the two credit lines of 100 million and 500 million provided by the Indian government to the Vietnamese government, they are on implementation process. So second area is the trade area. Trade area is also very positive. We will definitely get the targeted goal of 15 billion US dollar between our two countries by 2020. And as you see, during this month, we have around more than 10 events related to trades and business. So we hope that we will have more investment by India into Vietnam, as well as Vietnamese investment will take place in India. The third area is the area of people-to-people contact. You see, this is the first time ever we have the two direct flights operated by Indigo and Vietjet, connecting Kolkata and two cities in Vietnam, and New Delhi and Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. And the frequency of visitors is increasing substantially. And India become a destination for students of Vietnam to come and study, to do business, and Vietnam become wedding destination, golfing destination, and business destination for the business in India. So those are the three major basic achievements that we have been able to score over the past 3 years since we upgraded our comprehensive strategic partnership.
We recently had the ASEAN meeting. What are the outcomes that are going to benefit the ASEAN country and the partnering countries?
The ASEAN meeting, which took place in Bangkok recently, was a great success, and we would like to congratulate the Thailand host. And from now on, Vietnam will assume the chairmanship of ASEAN starting the 1st of January 2020. The meeting in ASEAN, the ASEAN meeting in Bangkok have been successful in many ways. Number one, it strengthened the solidarity and internal cohesiveness between and among ASEAN members. Number two, it continued and we are implementing the ASEAN Vision 2025, and this is an opportunity to review the implementation of that vision. Number two, ASEAN continue to play a very important role as the centrality, the driving force for regional and international integration. ASEAN continue to be a successful regional grouping that can bring together at one table the leaders of various important countries. And number three, ASEAN has been able to address with some issues relating to peace and security in the region. During the meeting, many ASEAN countries and many dialogue partners have also raised concerns over the recent serious incident that took place in the South China Sea, especially in the territorial waters of Vietnam. And they all underlined the importance of peace and security. They underlined the necessity for respect for international law, including the UNCLOS 1982, and they underlined the importance of freedom of navigation and overflight in the region and the necessity for peaceful settlement of all the dispute in the region. So in a nutshell, ASEAN continued to emerge as a successful, vibrant organization, and Vietnam is very pleased to assume the chairmanship on the basis of the past success created by the previous host.
As you mentioned that Vietnam is going to be the chair of ASEAN organization in the next year. What are the plans ahead?
The plan ahead are various, but we have a number of priorities. But let me share with you the logo and the motto of Vietnam ASEAN Chairmanship 2020. There are two principled motto. First is cohesiveness, and second is responsiveness. When we talk about cohesiveness, we mean that there is an important task and responsibility for Vietnam to strengthen the ASEAN solidarity and to increase ASEAN economic, social, and cultural linkages. We believe that ASEAN solidarity is the core interest of all ASEAN, and that will help ASEAN to play a bigger role in the international arena. On the second aspect of the goal, namely responsiveness, we would like to see ASEAN will take a more proactive approach on various issues internationally and regionally in order to contribute to peace and security in the region. And Vietnam's role is very important. Vietnam has to make sure that it can play a well coordinating role in order to have a harmonious and consensus position reflecting the views of all 10 ASEAN countries members. Now we talk about what are the specific priorities. I believe that there are a number of specific priorities. Number one, Vietnam wish to be able, together with other ASEAN countries, to make sure that the region where ASEAN is located continue to be a region of peace and security, because without peace and security, we cannot develop our respective countries. Number two, we want to strengthen the internal solidarity and linkages among and between ASEAN countries. Number three, we try to have a proactive approach when it comes to all the new technology and try to make full profit of the Revolution 4.0. And number four, we try to enhance ASEAN community identity because we have become one community. And in order to strengthen that community cohesiveness, we need to be able to identify one single ASEAN identity and promote it. And number five, we need to make ASEAN to play its deserving role, as we call it, a convening power in order to continue to ensure its centrality and its driving forces in any future international, regional security structure or even economic structure in the region.
Ambassador, Vietnam is also going to become a member state for the UN Security Council in the next year. So, what are the agenda that Vietnam is going to portray there?
Perhaps it is the first time in Vietnam's foreign diplomacy when Vietnam assumes two important positions in one single goal, namely ASEAN chairmanship and Vietnam non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council. And Vietnam would try to use the two hats to support each other and make it mutually reinforcing task. And as the member of the UN Security Council, Vietnam will work very closely together with all countries which are member of the council as well as the non-member members, non-council members, in order to strengthen peace and security. Because one of the major mandate of the UN Security Council is to preserve peace and stability. So peace and stability maintenance is one of the priority in Vietnam. Number two, we need to implement the development agenda. 2 years back, the UN have adopted the Sustainable Development Goal, and Vietnam will commit itself to not only full implementation of that goal, but also to work with other countries in order to implement that. And number three, Vietnam will work closely with all members of the UN Security Council in order to address all the matters of the global concern, like climate change, anti-drug, anti-crime, all this anti-terrorism, things like that.
Coming back to the ASEAN agreement these past days, so India declined the RCEP agreement. Do you think India is going to miss out something, and in what way it is going to affect the Vietnam's export in India?
We understand profoundly the genuine concern and interest expressed by India, and we respect Indian decision, and we consider it as a sovereign decision. We believe that had India joined the CF, Vietnam would have been happier because we don't want to see a club excluding India. And we believe that Vietnam and India would have been able to benefit from that agreement had India joined. For the future, we believe that there is always an open way and open gate for India to join. Vietnam sincerely hope that India one day can join, and we hope that that day will not be very long in the future.
If India would have joined the RCEP agreement, what could be the major sectors which could benefit in Vietnam?
We believe that definitely service will benefit Vietnam tremendously because looking back at the free trade agreement between ASEAN and India, we hope that India can ex- ex- export more services to ASEAN country. And at the moment, as we observed, India is very strong at services, IT services, banking services, telephone services. I mean, in all services, India is very good. And we understand that. So had India joined RCEP, we would believed that it would be able to help Vietnam in improving further its services market.
Could we then expect a kind of bilateral agreement between Vietnam and India?
Uh, I don't exclude any possibility at this stage, but we hope that India will be able to join RCEP in the very near future, because once it's able to address all the difference with different agreement countries. But what is important is that we hope that this is not only in the interest of India, but also is in the interest of the members of that agreement. And more importantly, we believe this is not only an economic benefit, but it also contribute to peace and security in the region and across the world.
This year, Vietnam also faced some kind of foreign aggression. How do you deal with these kind of aggressions, typically about the Asian one and the Western world?
Recently, Vietnam faced a very serious challenges, which created by the fact that China sent its citizen vessels into Vietnamese waters. That concerns have been expressed by the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign of Vietnam, and that concern has also been expressed at various levels during the ASEAN meeting in Bangkok by different participants. We hope that that kind of incidents will never happen again in the future for the overall benefit of the relationship not only between Vietnam and China, which is also a very important comprehensive strategic partnership, but for the benefit of other countries in the region, and especially for the respect of international law and for peace and stability in the region.
There was also a kind of US blockade in terms of economic ties. So, how do you deal with these kind of economic blockades?
Economic blockades against Vietnam? Um, at the moment, we are doing very well, but we are living in the world of full of unpredictability. So Vietnam need to get ready for any scenario in the future. We believe that we believed in international integration, and we don't think that protectionism will be beneficial to anyone, even those who pursued that policy.